Welcome to the Pacey Performance Podcast. Today, I'm speaking with coach and co-owner of Unbreakable Performance, Brett Bartholomew. This episode of the Pacey Performance Podcast is sponsored by Valid Performance, makers of the Nordboard. So if you haven't heard of the Nordboard already, don't worry, I'll explain, it's really simple. So the Nordboard is a fast and accurate way to measure hamstring strength. So as practitioners, we can do very little about athlete age and previous hamstring injury. But what we can do something about is our athlete's eccentric strength, and that's where the Nordboard comes into play. It isn't going to get your athlete's hamstrings bulletproof, but what it is going to do is going to give you the right information so you, the practitioner, can make the right decision at the right time. With the Nordboard now available and being bought by the likes of David Joyce at the GWS Giants in the AFL, if you're interested in finding out more information, you can email info@valdperformance.com or visit valdperformance.com. This episode of the Pacey Performance Podcast is sponsored by Train with Push, creators of the Push Band. So the Push Band is the first scientifically validated wearable device to provide objective insights into your performance in the gym. So using accelerometers and a gyroscope, the Push Band is able to use bar speed to regulate load and volume based on your ability in the gym on any given day. So you can use the push band to quickly establish 1 RMs with submaximal load so you can plan with confidence. So the push band portal also allows you to create programs before entering the gym to make change on the fly depending on how you are performing on that given day. So you can customize everything from target velocity ranges to differentiating velocities for warm-up and creating working sets and supersets for yourself or your athletes. So if you do want to know more about Train with Push and the Push Band, get yourself over to trainwithpush.com. They also have got a great blog, so you can catch up with some guest bloggers such as Mladen Ivanovic and Dan Baker. So be sure to check them out at trainwithpush.com. Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to episode 72 of the Pacey Performance Podcast. So, managed to tie Brett down for a part 2, which I've been meaning to do ever since part 1, but as he'll explain in the podcast, plenty of things have changed for him over the last couple of months. So I'm not going to give Brett any introduction whatsoever because he speaks for himself. So enjoy the podcast, but just before I let you go and get into the chat with Brett, last chance to book on the webinar on the 21st of February at 7 p.m. GMT, and that's with Matt Jordan. So it's going to be a great chat with Matt. I've seen Matt present live and he blew me away, and the rest of the guys at the Seattle Sounders Conference, which is open for booking, by the way, so get on that because it's a great event. So if you are interested in listening to Matt speak on the webinar, you can go to paceyperformance.co.uk/Matt, and all the details are on there. So enjoy the chat with Brett, and I'll speak to you soon. Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to the Pacey Performance Podcast. So today we've got part 2 with Brett Bartholomew. So things have changed a little bit for Brett. I'm not going to do any intro whatsoever because I'll just get him in and let him roll. So thanks for giving up your time on a Sunday, Brett, and welcome to the podcast for part 2.
No, I'm excited. I don't ever look at it as giving up time. It's always awesome to talk to you and get back on here.
Cool, good man. So how's things changed since last time we spoke?
A lot. First and foremost, no longer with Ethos, as I think I don't want to say most of your listeners know, because I don't imagine myself to be that important in their lives. But as some of them might know, had a great going on 6 years with Ethos. They certainly did a lot for me, and I really enjoyed working with them and being a part of that family. And we left on great terms, but it was just time for a new chapter, new challenge, and literally been out in LA now for about 12 days, starting the next chapter of my life.
Nice. So how's LA?
LA is a bit different. Rob and I were talking offline a little bit, but being from the Midwest, middle of America, we always kind of view ourselves as a little bit of a filter of all coasts and the other cardinal directions. LA the people have been great so far. Of course, there are packs of individuals that seem to think that they're more important than anybody else. So, but that's anywhere in the world now. I always just say that the gene pool could use a little bit of chlorine internationally. But yeah, it's been great. The clientele out here is phenomenal. A lot of fighters, a lot of football players, interesting celebrity clientele as well. And surprisingly, a lot of them like to work really hard. When I knew the spot I'm at now had some celebrities in there, I thought I was just going to come into Fluff Central. But we see some guys, like The Rock and Terry Crews and stuff like that, just getting after it, and it's awesome to see that kind of environment and culture and atmosphere, because some of these athletes and them will jaw back and forth, and it's awesome. But yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. It's a bit of a transition. My wife's still in Phoenix trying the household, but that's all boring stuff. Hopefully we'll get settled soon and it'll become a new home quickly.
Cool. So just want to give us a little bit of an insight into what, where you actually are and what the situation is down there for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So there were a couple situations that came about. There was a tremendous opportunity in the NFL to work with a good friend of mine, and then there was another opportunity that is obviously the one that I ended up taking, to work with Jay Glazer, Brian Urlacher, and Lindsey Berg. And just to give your listeners some insight, Jay Glazer is the #1 Fox Sports NFL and UFC insider, very, very tied in with the world of football and UFC and fighting. And Brian Urlacher is a Hall of Fame linebacker from the Chicago Bears, a guy that was well known for his work ethic and no-nonsense attitude, and also just being a great guy. And then Lindsey Berg is a 3-time Olympian volleyball player. So I'm now a partner with them in their business Unbreakable. Unbreakable is a performance center out here in LA that, we work with everybody from, athletes, fighters and football, big population out here, and two of my main areas of focus, if you follow my work at all. And also clientele, general pop, things like that, because we are in West Hollywood. So the idea behind it was Jay and them wanted to create a place that was kind of a small, underground, kind of grittier feel that people that really wanted to work were going to seek out. This is not some big mecca or some kind of fitness or training conglomerate where you're going to walk in and every piece of every toy and tool and tech and everything is presented. It's pretty bare bones, but it's also got some cutting edge stuff. We have cryotherapy. We have a lot of unique nutrition solutions. We have we have the basics like Normatec recovery solutions. The big difference is, there's what I love about the place is there's no mirrors. Half of it is all performance training. So there's equipment, racks well outfitted, dumbbells, bars, kettlebells, the usual. And the other, like the inside of an MMA gym. So we have a big, huge, where jiu-jitsu can be done. We literally have a caged-in area for sparring and boxing and MMA work and all that kind of stuff. And one of the big, unique pieces of this is athletes from every sport will come out here and they want to do the performance training. They also get the MMA piece. And that doesn't mean they're in here fighting one another. That's certainly that's not that. It means for football linemen, they're learning different aspects of handwork and leverage and how to use their body and center of gravity. We have Adrian Bell, who's a Hall of Fame baseball player, 420 some odd, that comes here in the off season, and the guy's just done that gross repetition of the same patterns all season long. So he comes in here and learns a little bit of Muay Thai and boxing and just gets his body into some different patterns. And then other days of the week, we do performance training. So, our squats or deadlifts or pulls, anything like that. And so it's a unique culture because Unbreakable, that kind of brand and mindset is kind of like what Google is to search engines. We want people to come in and understand that the #1 thing that transfers to sport, aside from ethical training needs, is their confidence. And if they walk in here and they leave without an increase in confidence, we didn't do our job right, because that fighting aspect and getting them outside of their comfort zone and getting that unique atmosphere, we don't really give a shit who you are. You're going to come in here and work and be a part of this family is extremely unique in my mind. And everything that I've always kind of preached and valued about performance culture is you've got to start from that kind of standpoint. Anybody that's read Legacy, from James Kerr knows that. It all starts from a culture and a mentality and a mindset, and that's really what we hang our hat on here.
Mm-hmm. So what was it like with Vincent Kompany? You put a little tweet out the other day with his shirt, with his signature?
Yeah, Vincent Kompany and some. What's up?
I was going to say, did he get his boxing gloves on?
Yeah, you know what? He didn't do the boxing piece, but we taught him some of the kicking elements and stuff about MMA, kicking and different hip work and what have you. Awesome guy. So yeah, Vincent Kompany and the Manchester City crew came down, and there was about 5 or 6 of them, and they spent about a week down here, and it was just awesome. And I think one of the things they loved about it is the same thing that I loved about it. And again, maybe some of your listeners won't understand this, but I think there's a good bit of them that will kind of nod their head and bare their teeth at this. Like, you come from Man City, their facility is absolutely unreal. That's a palace. And then they come in here, we got a 3,500 square foot Spartan, like, where the hell is this place kind of feel to it. And they all just like lit up when they came in, and they're like, yep, this is going to be fun. And that's how it feels. It feels like, again, apologies for the American reference, but Gleason's Boxing Club, in New York City, where you go in there and there's this kind of iconic, like, okay, like, I know exactly what I'm here to do. Let's get to work. And so they were great, super open-minded. He was a class act, signed a jersey for us, and, awesome guys. So we were happy to have them in.
Nice. So, general population. Have you done much with general population before?
I think just like with most of your coaches listening, when I started, especially when I started, so I was kind of a utility player when I started at Exos. I had trained, my normal day was I'd train a general population group at 6, another one at 7. I'd work with a military group at about 8 or 9 o'clock. Then I'd work with an athlete group, like more of an elite athlete group after that. Then I'd kind of have a midday break, and then I'd work youth the rest of the evening. So, I was that guy that was kind of there from 5 a.m. to 7:15. You maybe took an hour break in the middle of the day. So that was a big part of it. But it had been a while, admittedly. There were times where our coach at Exos was out, Joel Sanders, and I'd have to fill in. And so I've always enjoyed it. Like, it's the same principles, right? In terms of you want to make sure to train them with smart movement patterns and all that, but you can always kind of just lay back a little bit, talk to them a little bit more, add some fun elements. So it had certainly been a while, and it's not, I would say, where my career is going to track, but I certainly don't mind it when I have a couple groups today where it's just people looking to get their minds and body rights. I mean, it's like this, right? Training is something that we do, but coaching is something that we live. Mm-hmm. And if you're kind of elitist and say, well, I only coach X, Y, and Z, then I don't know. I think that you're missing a bit of perspective there, and there's value from doing both sides.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's looked down upon. It's looked down upon. I mean, we had a guy who lives in Manchester, Rick Moylan, who was Ricky Hatton's coach.
Yeah.
And Ricky Hatton, Scott Quigg, the boxer, UK boxer, and tennis player. And we talked about his kind of time with Ricky Hatton and the various other athletes that he works with. And he was like, yeah, I'm a PT. I work with 40-year-old housewives who come in at lunchtime because they want to get fit or they want to lose a little bit of weight. And he said that gets looked down upon by kind of like your archetypal kind of strength coach. But why is that? Why should that be looked down upon, that he goes from Ricky Hatton in the morning to Mrs. Smith, the 40-year-old, secretary at lunchtime?
Yeah, I don't think it should. I mean, people strength coaches quote it all the time. Specialization is for insects, and so some of my greatest lessons were from coaching youth athletes and Gen Pop and things like that. And I tell interns all the time, like, if you're here just to work with elite athletes, you're really shortchanging your development. Now, again, my specialty now and going forward is primarily elite athletes, and has been for a number of years. My specialization you can coach, and I agree. Now real coaches, it's kind of that hip hop, recognize real, you'll know if you're around somebody that understands that dynamic and can do both, and most of the greats can. I mean, you listen to some of them, a lot of them, even the ones that are in the pro organizations have said, yeah, I got fired, and for a year I went and worked in the private sector and I did this. And then you have guys like me who started in the team setting, but then went to the private sector. And really, it's just like, it's this whole, none of this matters.
Yeah.
Public sector athletes, individuals, like, coaching is coaching. What the biggest gap is are you a trainer or are you a coach? That is different. Yeah. That is different. And I think even some of these people that say trainers, if they were to be honest with their skill set, some of them, should be calling themselves, because they're doing themselves a disservice. And then there's other coaches that are probably a bit more of what we think of when we think of trainers, people that paid for their cert. But this ego and the labels and the nominative determinism, that's what keeps people from being great, and that's kind of an ego thing. Like, coach people, you know what I mean? And then quit patting yourself on the back, and their trophies aren't your trophies, buddy. You know what I mean? So,
yeah. What? Yeah.
Yeah. What? Are you kidding? Yeah. I hate to say, like, if I was in the NFL right now and my team was playing in the Super Bowl, I would love to sit here and be like, you know what? It's our new floating periodization model that we've kind of adapted from the research. And the way that I have my guys using bands and chains in season and just mastering the elements of the neuromuscular system based off all the monitoring that we do and preserving their body, that's why we're in the Super Bowl. Come on, bud. You know what I mean? Like, you're probably, yes, that plays a part without a doubt. I'll never downplay what we do. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in this industry. But nobody's winning a Super Bowl because of my squat program. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, we're one piece in a much larger puzzle, and take pride in what you do, but you got to be realistic as well. Pride comes before a fall.
But what it can do is earn you $5,000 for a weekend speaking at a conference.
It can earn you that, or it can earn you a bright new shiny ring. So when you're at that conference, you're now the guy that gets to hold court, and everybody wants to come. You know what I mean? It's funny. I mean, it's all good, and that's certainly no disrespect to the people that are playing in the Super Bowl this weekend. They both obviously have to do tremendous jobs to keep their guys healthy. So again, not downplaying that. I'm more poking fun at the sensationalism where people try to take that kind of correlation equals causation thing and run with it. Although I got to tell you, Rob, I got to be a little bit more careful with what I say, apparently, because there's been several things I've put on social media lately.
I saw that.
Oh, God.
It's been kicking off.
Dude, no matter what you put on social media, like I could put today, the weather is beautiful in LA. And there's going to be some guy that goes, yeah, except when it's not. Or, but what about the cloudy days? Are you saying they're no good? Yeah. No. I'm just saying that the weather's nice today. That's all. Like, no matter what you say on social media, somebody thought I was attacking Lee Taft lately, who is an absolute legend and great buddy of mine, because I noticed you posted something about a speed coach, and Lee's a legend. And I go, listen, dude, I just took a picture and hit send. I didn't get on Facebook and look who is advertising what, like this is just a general message that I send out there on my thoughts. And so I have to be careful because my natural tendency is probably more of an aggressive one. And I'll get caught up in that stuff. And so my response was like, I don't worry about people's perception. People are always going to take whatever they want out of a message. I'm just trying to help. And share some thoughts. I don't think mine are mind-blowing, but if this really stirred you up, there you go.
Yeah. So one thing that's that we chatted about earlier was obviously making a transition from working at Exos to where you are now, and the topic of freedom came up, which was music to my ears. So do you just want to talk to us a little bit about where you stand on that side of things, and the kind of obviously the benefits that you're going to hopefully reap in the private sector?
Yeah, absolutely. So to give a little bit more context, so I'm not only the director of performance out here, like I said earlier, I'm now part owner, and I'm also the general manager, and I'm also a coach. Yeah. And so to most listeners, they'd be like, well, that doesn't sound like freedom. That sounds like you're going to be pretty busy.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. Like, definitely going to be busy. I have a staff of around, 8 or 9 people when you look at everything, different coaches and therapists and everybody we've got to work between. And again, that's in a 3,500 square foot area with a bunch of different athletes running all over the place. Now, one of the things when I had told people that, I had made this decision, over taking an NFL role, it wasn't like, that kind of threw a lot of people. And to be honest, if you were to ask me a year ago, it would have thrown me too. And it's not me saying that I will never go that route in the future. I love the team setting. I'm passionate about it. But one thing that this offered amongst many is Jay is an incredibly successful businessman in a lot of what he does. And his partners have been incredibly successful, not only in their chosen vocation, but in all other aspects. And I really like and value learning about all different things in life. And I wanted to come and work with people that are amongst the best of the best at what they do in many different realms, not just in strength and conditioning. That's going to make me a better strength coach. That's going to make me a better husband. That's going to make me a better director of performance. That's going to do a lot of things for me. And I also my wife and I are working on having kids right now. And the number one thing that is important to me is being able to leave a legacy as a father. And I don't really care what anybody thinks about that. That's important to me. That's my life. That's one of my things is I would like to be a strength coach that actually has a good relationship with his wife. And, I'm with my son and I'm not gone all the time. And there's going to be aspects of that grind here for sure. But if I do my job right and we do our jobs right, there's also going to be an immense amount of freedom and growth opportunity, not only in the money that I can make, and I'm completely transparent with that. That is important to me, to make money in doing it the right way, not by selling a bunch of crap, but literally by doing it. And that's like heresy in strength and conditioning. You can't make money. Otherwise, you're some kind of guru or you're some kind of what generation are we living in?
Yeah.
I want to make money. I want to be great at what I want, what I do. And you know what? I want to have great personal relationships. And if something about that is frowned upon and somehow people can't understand that, then, whatever. But those are my goals. And so the freedom and the ability to do that and align with people that have those same kinds of values was priority number one. Also, here's another thing. There's a lot of good strength coaches out there that don't have jobs, and they just get in the revolving door of, trying to get in the team setting, trying to get in the private setting, all this. I'm in a position now that as we grow, I can hire people. I can help people start to provide for their families and change their lives and things like that. And that stuff is important to me. And so to be able to have that kind of freedom, autonomy, and I use this word loosely, like power in a good way, to be able to leave a legacy in multiple different ways was a big deciding factor in coming here. Does that answer that succinctly?
No, absolutely. No, 100%. So why is it in the industry that it's kind of frowned upon when you say I actually do want, not that you have this, I'm not saying you do, but the weekends to myself. I want to spend time with my kid. I want to wash my car. I want to go in the garden. That's just me, by the way, Brett. But
that's fine.
But I want to be able to do what I want. I don't want to have a ball and chain and someone tell me that I need to be there at 8 o'clock until 9 o'clock. Doing X, Y, and Z. Well, why is that frowned upon? And especially the money thing. I want to do this. I want more freedom, and I want that potential to earn more money. Why is that frowned upon? Because it's not if you worked in business, if you set up I don't know, whatever it may be. I want to earn loads of cash. That's absolutely fine. It's not an issue. But when you say that, people think you're, like you say, some sort of guru.
Yeah, and I think you're definitely right. I mean, it is like that. I will say in other industries as well. My father grew up as he was absolutely dirt poor. Lost his dad when he was 13. His dad was an alcoholic. His mom. My dad kind of had to start helping provide for his family when my dad was just a teenager. And then he became a stockbroker. And part of that was I want to create my own life. So that's fine that's commission. I'm going to hustle. Mm-hmm. So I grew up and kind of, I'd go to see my dad at his office and stuff because he'd work late nights. And that atmosphere is in other professions. It's a little bit different, but it is, there's guys that want to have nicer suits than somebody else and better business cards and, shit like that. And they're not all for each other. It is more conditioning. If you're visible at all, or you start making money, or you start doing this, to your point, it's just more volatile. It's not volatile. It's a more aggressive form of that here, where people automatically assume oh, well, this guy's doing this guy's doing that. Like, sometimes people can just be in good situations, and Mark Verstegen, he credits his wife with it, but he had the best word for it I'd ever heard. It was egotistical. Like strength and conditioning guys like us, like, well, we just we love that blue collar hard knocks, and we attribute that with our identity and think that can't somehow coincide with also being successful and visible. You know what? You can get your hands dirty and still live a relatively polished life outside of that. Now that's not a place I'm at yet. I am, we are open Saturday, so I will work my weekends and, and things like that and what have you. But it absolutely makes no sense. But I just think that's kind of how the old guard did it. And it's still a relatively young profession that people in it haven't grown up enough. And how, in my opinion, and how can we sit here and spend more time raising other kids than half of us do spending our own, and then say that we're a good coach because we increase somebody's power output, their speed, or their 1RM? No, you're good if you develop a person from the inside out. That's when you're good. And when you can provide for your family, because success on the field means nothing if you have failure in your life. And there's going to be a time where every single person listening to this podcast should feel as if they can make money, they can have a great family life, and they can be damn good at their profession. And if they're on a one-way track, they need to have a wake-up call, because those things will make you better at the others. And so I'm going to be I'm certainly not there yet, but I will be absolutely unapologetic if I'm ever to the point where I don't have to worry about my finances. I know I train my athletes with good methods, and you know what? I can sit there with my family and know that I escaped that kind of grind that people stay in the rest of their lives again. And you know what? Here's the other thing. If people really didn't think that was the way to go, they wouldn't support pioneers like Lee Taft, Michael Boyle, Mark Verstegen, and all these people in the training industry that have kind of done. And there's plenty more. You have Dave Tate. No matter what space you're in, everybody's got their examples. So if I left out a name, sorry. But everybody wants that. You're telling me nobody wants, they just need to be more supportive, because this industry looks more childish and more goofy the longer we do this, and we become decrepit, cranky old, bags that get the life sucked out of us by the time we retire. But hey, we made it to the playoffs. It's like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know if you mentioned commission. So especially when you bring in the kind of harder you work, the more cash you get. That makes you stay a little bit later and worry about things a little bit more. That the better job you do, the more money you get, and the more potentially more success you have. And I know that's something that is kind of applicable to you now, and is certainly applicable to me. So yeah. I'm fucking grafting my ass off, because that's the situation. Maybe commissions should be brought into professional sport of some sort, because maybe it'd loosen people up a little bit.
Yeah, but, I think anytime people have the opportunity to create their future for themselves rather than be dependent on somebody kind of leading that chain for them is huge. And not only that, but retention. How about the retention aspect is huge, especially in the private sector. Well, I mean, in the private sector, because, you have some guys that may get people in their doors because of relationships, but results are what going to keep them there. Yeah. We all know kind of how to target, let's say, and it doesn't matter whether it's, real football, which, most people call soccer in America, or American football, or rugby, or what have you. We all know trainers that specialize in kind of like that YouTube training, that they can kind of pick the drills that look fancy and this and this and this and get guys in the door. But you still got to get guys there. But here's the other thing that the private sector taught me. This is a big one. So I hope some people really listen to this. A lot of times when people come film something, since I mentioned the YouTube stuff, film crews are only going to capture what they view as sexy and what they think they're going to like. So even when I did our NFL offseason training thing for Exos, they didn't capture the trap bar deadlifts and the squats and this and that. They captured what most just general people would ooh and ah at. And what do you think, Rob? Like, what do you think general people, when they think of athletes training, ooh and ah at? What kind of movements or what kind of tools?
The tech, the explosive stuff, the sprints, the people shouting and bawling and things like that.
The hype. Yeah, exactly. The hype. They're going to look at the quote unquote speed ladders. They want to see the drills. They want to see all this. And so that's another thing is like when people get into the world of non-sales selling, like Daniel Pink calls it, when they have to actually they have to increase awareness about their places. They have to increase awareness about that. There's very few that get full control over, what is seen. The UFC came in and they had a film crew when we were training them. Again, they didn't come on squat or deadlift day. They caught our guys doing bottoms up presses, a burnout series, just kind of some of the ESD work we did. And if you want to lose faith, again, somebody said this, I can't remember, somebody in the coaching profession, but they go, if you want to lose faith in the human population, just look at YouTube comments. And initially, to your point exactly, rather than somebody being like, oh, you know what, it looks like Rob Pacey's doing some decent stuff out there. Oh, he fell victim to the usual photography stuff and what have you. People get on there and they're like, oh, there's nothing magical about battling ropes. Oh, why are they doing this? Oh, why are they doing that? It's like, dude, you saw a 1 minute and 37 second clip of what was a 6 to 9 week training routine. Shut up. You know what I mean? And it's just, people have to understand that there's a whole nother aspect to what we do and what we have to do. And you've got to kind of loosen up a little bit. And at the end of the day, you shouldn't feel self-conscious about what somebody captures on tape or what somebody captures on audio. Whether you're doing the right stuff or not at the end of the day. And you have to be that, and not only that, there's social proof that goes with that. People that last in this profession, they have a certain circle around them that can validate and verify what they do. It's like, so that is the next generation, and you said this perfectly off tape, of strength and conditioning has got to be people that understand balance in your life makes you a better coach. They've got to seek to understand before they get on their soapbox, and they've just got to be more supportive of everything because we all want the same stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, just going back to the kind of the background of how you got involved with the gym, and you spoke about the kind of the faces of gyms and kind of businesses and things like that over, especially in the States. So your Mike Boyles, your Mark Verstagans. How important is it? And you've got this now, but how important is it to surround yourself not only with good coaches, but people from different walks of life and business people like you have at the minute. But instead of, obviously you're going to go around and visit different coaches and see how they do things, so you can take what you want. But how about going to, I don't know, meeting someone who's a CEO of a small business and see how they do things and how you can replicate, the kind of things, how they build a team and how they do X, Y, and Z. How important is it for you to do that? Critical. Yeah.
And that's something that Dan Path and I talked about often, and Stu McMillan as well. Like, those guys get it. And we all worked under the same roof together at Exos. And it's funny, Dan, most people just know him in the track and field world and all that. But Dan is, half of his philosophy is about people and learning from other avenues and how all the pieces of the puzzle fit together. Not just the unique, matrix of the human body and all this kind of stuff. When people go and they go to these Altus mentorships and they listen to Dan and they crowd around Stu, all of this stuff is a microcosm of what goes on in the training world, because our world is not that different than anything else. I used to think that because I'm not a stockbroker like my father and every other male in my family, that they had nothing in common. That's ridiculous. Compound interest and investing are tenets of financial planning, just like they're tenets of training. Building a business is just like building a person. You've got to go from the inside out. And so when people guys, at what point have you read enough of these books that talk about transfer of training and all these aspects? You've got to get beyond those books and read other things and go back and visit them. I'm reading the Special Strength Coach's Handbook by Natalia Verkhoshansky. I'm reading that for the second time because it had just been a while, and you got to re-up. But, the 50 other books I have on my Kindle are things completely different, and it's not just about leadership either. I'll get on that, you've got to look beyond the leadership. You've got to look at understanding the processes of what it takes to get people on board with a message. And that's a book that I'm working on right now. albeit slowly, especially because of the move, but I'm about 160 some odd pages in. And the book is completely, it's called and it's about building buy-in. And that's one part of it. Like, and I used to not really talk about what the title of it's going to be because I figured there's some coach that doesn't coach that's going to try to write the book while I, and somebody may, but I'd rather share it on here so that if that book does come out, you at least know I talked about it first. And I've been talking about this shit for at least 2.5 years. You can ask Dan Paff and Stu because I presented it for them and I presented in Ireland. But my whole thing is called Conscious Coaching. How to build buy-in by enhancing trust and relationships. And it's more of a scientific view of, we have Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, and that's based on like principles of interaction. But what I started doing is really reading a lot in the psychosocial dynamic of why do certain principles of interaction work? Why do certain aspects of manipulation, influence, communication, all these things tend to work on us the way we do? And I'm working on writing that book as it pertains to coaching. And you'll hear it here first. It's not going to be perfect. I'll probably hate it once I write it, but I do think it's needed because every coach is asking. The number one thing I get reached out for, and it's nice to know that I've kind of started to be known for this niche. That's what I like, is not only the training that I do, but more importantly, how I get guys on board with it. People will say, hey, your guys seem to really be loyal to you and love you and understand the picture. And I go, guys, it's because it's how I communicate with them. I learned immensely when I was at the University of Nebraska. I remember our strength coach at the time, James Dobson, was talking to everybody about something that was going on during training that day. Hey, it's a heavy squat day. We have X, Y, and Z. This is the things that we're going to do. And when he broke down the team, everybody walked away and was like, why are we doing this? What are we, weightlifters? What are we this and that? And so, boom, right then I recognized an opportunity that I'd go up to these guys and say, hey, do you know why you squat heavy? Let me tell you, what's your goal? He'd be like, I want to get faster, man. I care about football. I'd be like, cool. Well, squatting heavy helps in this way, and then the players started coming to me and they'd be like, Coach B, what does this do? Like, why are we doing this? They didn't like some guys just don't like training and they'd want to know why. Just like somebody may walk into a small business, Rob, like you said, and they're browsing. They don't know what they want to buy, but then they come across a product that they think is going to enhance their life in some way, shape, or form. And that's what the great products do in these businesses is they speak to the athlete and say, speak to the person and say, hey, you're missing this in your life, or this can enhance X, Y, and Z in your life. So I try to help athletes see this is your goal. This is our method. Our purpose matches with your process, and this is how we're going to move forward together. And so you've got to learn that kind of trait of talking and selling. Again, selling in a connotation. Anybody that thinks selling is like, ShamWow, infomercial stuff, what have you. You have to get that out of your head. You sell all the time as a coach. When you want people to come train with you or listen to what you're doing, you're trying to sell them on a future result they can't see. They can't test drive enhanced performance. They have to feel it. And the only way they feel it is if they believe you enough to submit to the process that you're going to put them through. And that is the critical thing that most coaches lack. Like, people don't just want to get under the bar like we do because we love the strain. A lot of them want to get under the bar or a lot of them don't want to get under the bar. They're just doing it because they have to. You need to help them understand why they need to. Just like a business owner needs people to understand why they need their store, their product, their this, their that.
Mm-hmm. So you obviously mentioned the book there. You've got a website. I'm interested to know. We didn't discuss this actually beforehand. Interested to know the vision for the site. Yeah.
So
why?
Yeah, admittedly, it's still. I don't know that I can communicate it accurately because that's still evolving. The site is not yet. Otherwise, I'd be happy to announce it. Just a lot of stuff going on right now, but I think the goal of the site is, obviously my book will be there, once it's done, praying once it's done. And then the other thing is probably just, so people have more of a concentrated way to reach out to me right now. And I'm completely honored and grateful. So anybody listening to this that's a supporter, like, thank you. I really work hard to just put useful stuff out there. I understand none of it's mind blowing, but I'm just trying to share thoughts that maybe weren't shared with me when I came up. So I want to help, but I get a lot of things via Facebook message, via Twitter, via email, via text, and it just gets hard to keep up with all of them. I get home at like 7 or 7:30 at night, and I start answering my Facebook messages, my tweets, all this stuff, and it just kind of gets to be a bit overwhelming, and I don't get back to people as quickly as I'd like sometimes, even though I give myself 2 days. In this case, when I'm moving, it's been a week or so, but 2 days, and if I don't get back to them, like, I've got to reach out. But the site will kind of help streamline that. So, hey, this is who I am. This is what I do. If I can help in any way, reach out to me here. Because I do want to get out there, and I've done a lot of speaking over the past couple of years with Exos and independently. I do want to be able to help any way that I can, but that's the main thing, is a streamlined resource where people can reach out to me there, because you just can't keep up with all the social media after some point in time. And to be honest, I don't want to come home and spend it. Right now I'm spending about 73 minutes every night answering all that kind of stuff. And that, I don't mean that as, man, I'm important, listen to how much stuff I get. I mean that as, I just value getting back to people if they're going to take the time to reach out to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Cool. So one last thing before I let you go. CPD. People.
CPD.
Yeah, CPD. Let's chat CPD. So conferences, workshops, seminars, webinars, podcasts, blogs, obviously all forms of CPD, and we've discussed a little bit over email, but I'd love you to expand on that side of things. Is there aspects of this missing? What kind of the info that people are sharing, if you get what I mean? Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. I think it'd be good to give the listeners a little bit more context, just because we communicate offline. Do you want me to go into that, or you want to go into that? You go. People don't want to hear me speak. Don't worry about that. I think they do, man. You have a much better accent. Everybody. I've had somebody recently tell me that I sound like I have either gargled glass or smoked too much. And I'm like, well, I think you're trying to say my voice is. She goes, no, I mean your voice is unique. I go, well, you failed at that communication. Thanks a lot. Yeah. Was she American? Was she American, or was she? No. She was English. English. Okay. It's like, okay, well, but listen. I know I sound, gravelly. But yeah, Rob and I were talking, in terms of, and I'm not always politically correct. There's just a lot of people that are kind of, course whores, and there's all these courses and information and all that, and people listen to the podcast and they're inundated with it. And the point that Rob made, really well is, people love the information when they hear it, but then afterwards they're like, okay, well, I'm going to go back to doing what I do now. That's great information. That's good. I feel it's almost like we feel good because we ticked it off our list. We did our Con Ed for the day. But very few of those things are really game changing for us all the time. And I agree. I went to the NSCA Coaches Conference and the presentations were phenomenal. But anybody that goes to these presentations understands that the best stuff really happens when coaches get together. They get together and they talk movement in the lobby, like me and Sean Mishka did recently with a whole host of people, or they talk, you just go and listen into some of these geniuses. Like I listened to Brian Mann talk, and Brian and I will talk for 5 seconds on, some life stuff, and then another second it's about training or what have you. But the stuff that has the real big meat to it and really provides you with action items is the stuff that is right in front of you. And you're like, okay, I can do this tomorrow. We can talk about it a little bit more in depth. So Rob and I are just talking about how can we really get people to take not only this information, because we are in the information age, but really make that a little bit more transformational and do something with it. Like, what's the future medium of that? Right, Rob? Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. 100%.
And
go on. Sorry, mate. You go.
No. You go ahead.
No. It was just something that Carl Varley had. I mentioned Carl because of how kind of frank he is especially on Twitter. And how he kind of promotes the let's see it kind of view.
Yeah.
Don't just say something. Let's see what have you done. And I kind of respect that a lot because he puts himself out there, and I'm sure a lot of people don't like him. And I'm pretty sure that he would probably say exactly the same. But no, it was just going back to what you said. It was just promoting that. Thanks to that information, now show us how that is, replicates what you actually do in the real world. How does that, what? Go on then, and
yeah, what? No, yeah, totally. And so And you're right with Carl, and at first when Carl and I interacted, I was like, are you like calling me out with this stuff? And so one day we met for lunch. I had surgery and I had a suction drain in me, like literally I had 3 days. And I was like, listen, man, like, I think we're miscommunicating. Let's meet face to face, because a lot of times that let's see it thing, like, I get what he's saying, but you can't put it on Twitter.
Yeah.
And so we reached out and we talked. You can't put it on Twitter just because like there's 140 characters and, all of a sudden you write, hey, this is message 1 of 5. This is message 1 of 6, 2 of 6, And so I was like, let's go to lunch because we got to get a feel for one another. And we went there and I'm trying to like drive in my car because I have this suction drain attached to me because I had 2 like just cysts removed down by my coccyx. And I'm like, oh, this better be worth it. We're going to get into it, whatever, And, Carl was like, listen, dude, like, I'm sorry. I don't always, maybe this didn't come across right. He goes, I'm just looking for answers. It's not me calling, people out. And I was like, and I think there might be some instances, but he made it very clear, like, you're not who I'm worried about. Carl, the main time, is looking for guys that are like making grandiose claims. And, you just kind of, sometimes like, you have to kind of decide, okay, is it worth it to even, like, I don't really care. Those people I don't pay attention to. But I had to get to know why Carl was asking some of these things. And he said what you said. He goes, I just want to see some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And so, and that I can appreciate because, sometimes I do too. And even if the answer is, I don't know, like if somebody's like, hey, this is something I'm thinking, boom, I put it on social media. And even if the answer is, I don't know, like, why do we go away from saying that? Now we have to be careful because you can't explain your whole philosophy over social media. I mean, there's certain things that are going to be trade secrets. Like, you can talk about what you do, but how you do it, somebody's just got to come see you. And that's why I always say, wherever I'm at, people have an open door policy. Like, you're going to be bored, but you're going to see me choose the same exercise as you are. I don't think there's necessarily a whole magic in that. I think the magic is in how I coach or how another person coaches and that. So just come see it. And so anyway, we had a good talk, but yeah, that is something all right, let's see it. But how do you do that when we've all got crazy schedules, when there's limited access? And, that's why I started putting some stuff on Instagram. Finally, I was slow to that. That's why I put stuff. But even that, Rob, is a double-edged sword because then I put something on Instagram and people will take it out of context. And then you just kind of are like, all right, guys, you want to talk about it, just call me, come see me. Like, I'm an open book. Like, nobody's trying to slip anything by anybody. But there are people, it would be good to see more of that. So the solution around that as to, okay, we've heard Dave Tenney speak now. We know Dave Tenney is a legend and an incredibly smart guy, even though Dave Tenney totally made fun of me for being short. I'm 5'8". And I go up to Dave to meet him for the first time, and he goes, oh, I thought you'd be taller. And I'm like, that's the first thing you say to me, man? I am not self-conscious about my height, so I'm going to assume that you just thought by my picture I look taller. But anyway, we all hear about the legend that he is. And you have Dan Baker, and you have everybody in all these different, Lachlan Wilmot. Like, I could name a million coaches, but hearing what they do does not necessarily show you it. And you leave these presentations and you hear the framework, but how do I do it? How do I do it? And that's what, when I present, I always try to say, hey, I put a little piece in there called the coaching clinic. And the coaching clinic is, okay, now you've heard what I've talked about. This is how I implement it. And I try to end that with every section of slides. And that's been helpful for me. But I'd love to hear more of your thoughts as to what you think would be maybe the best idea around that.
Yeah, I mean, I did the webinar with Dan Baker. You mentioned Dan there back in October. Yeah, back in October, and it was kind of billed as a I don't know, an exhibition of the data and the information that he's collected over obviously a long career with the Broncos, and he presented that, and it was, for me, when the uptake was brilliant, and lots of people got to see it. But for me, it was I know I state that I know a lot of people don't, or most people don't have 15 years at the championship winning NRL club. But he presented exactly what he did, exactly what he found with, working with his athletes and how that guided him forwards. And I think whether you've got 1 year's experience or you've got 15 years experience, getting that out there, and even if it's just for yourself, like writing a book or, whatever it may be, or put it in a blog or whatever it may be. The kind of case study format for me is, like I'd put on Twitter, is where it's at. Because people want to see that, and I think that's where people are going to learn. Like if I want to learn about the transfer of training, like I'll pick up a book and I'll read it.
Yeah,
I'll read it, or I'll call someone and say, what do you think to this? But if I want to actually get inside someone's head, like for me, it needs to be in a case study format. Like I want to see how Jonas Dodu gets his UK sprint guys from 10.2 to 10.1. Like I want to know what he does, like what happened, and the thought process he went to make them decisions.
I think a lot of people are scared to share that, and this is just my opinion.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people are scared to share that because of how everybody reacts to everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that you just got to realize you have to have thick skin. You should never be scared of sharing something. Everybody is always, I'll save everybody the anxiety now. Not everybody is going to like you. Not everybody is going to agree with you. And somebody is bound to take it out of context. And so that thought leader hierarchy, I posted this on Facebook or Twitter, where I said, there's those who research and do, and those who research, do, and share. And if somebody ever criticizes somebody that, is out there doing it and they're sharing it, shame on you. Like that, nobody's sitting here saying they're perfect at it. You know what I mean? Like if somebody had the answer by now, we'd replicate it again and again, and nobody will ever have the answer because, and this is pinned on my Twitter, like people are the ultimate performance variable or principle. Like what works well for one guy is not going to work well for the next guy or team or what have you, because the stresses are different every day. Their relationships are different every year. The makeup of the athletes are different. Their ages are different. Their nutrition habits are different. Their sleep, everything's different, and we can try to manage it the best we can, and we obviously should, but stop, and I totally agree. When somebody just reached out to me the other day and says, how do you construct your presentations? Because, my presentations are a little bit different format. And I said, well, there's a couple things that orient how I share my information. One, I always go into the presentation trying to give somebody the why of what I do, but also the meat. So I'll say, hey, this is what we do. This is why we do. And this is what it looks like here. And that was my most recent presentation that I did for Dan and Stu and their Altus apprenticeship. It was my philosophy on NFL offseason training. And so I talked about how the overall philosophy, the strength training bit, the movement bit, the ESD bit, I did the why, the what, and then here's what mine looks like. You know what I mean? And that's gotten favorable responses because people are like, oh, like, I like that you show me that. And I sit up there and I have a disclaimer in front of all of my presentations. I go, listen, for the literal Larrys out there, this is just me sharing information. I'm not saying I have all the answers. This is not the perfect way. This may not work for you. That's okay. But this is like, I'm speaking right now and you're asking what I do. So this is that. Please just honor and respect that. And I think that's gotten better feedback than I thought. Most people, when I did your first episode, people were like, I appreciate your honesty. And I think that's just all people, especially, and guys like Carl as well, like are looking for is they're like, just give me some honesty. Now Carl and everybody else has to, be realistic that like honesty doesn't mean that it's going to be perfection. So don't make anybody feel a certain way if their answer isn't mind blowing, because some of the best shit isn't. Yeah. Some of the best shit isn't mind blowing. Yeah. But you need to respect the fact that people are sharing, and if you're going to criticize that, be ready to share everything that you do as well. Be ready to share it openly and honestly. And you know what? You better really blow people's minds because, whereas that quote goes, the credit goes to the person that's in the arena, not the one that's sitting out there heckling and throwing this and that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And I put it out on Twitter a couple of times. I've had some decent response for people who want to do that. So if there is anyone, whether it's like just taking me, for example, working in the academy at, a League One football team, or whether it's someone working at, in AFL, wherever it may be, if anyone wants to share that, I'm happy to provide the platform to share that on the site. And there's been a couple of guys who've taken me up on that. So I think it's great. I think it benefit me, and my kind of mantra is if it benefits me and I like it, I'm pretty sure that other people will. So
yeah, well, and without a doubt, and I think you'd agree. I don't want to speak for you, Rob, but I think you'd agree that goes to all coaches, not somebody that's just the head coach of an NFL team or Champions League team or first team. Like, if you're 21 years old and you're learning a lot right now about coaching and you've made a lot of mistakes and you're on your journey, there are other 18, 19, 21-year-olds and even 46-year-olds that will value from something you say.
Yeah.
So all you have to do is just make sure that you don't sit up there and try to act like you've done this for 48 years, but like sharing your thoughts should be free. That should be applauded. And, we tell our athletes to do this process and this journey all the time. If there's any coach out there that is getting on somebody just for sharing, you need to reevaluate yourself because your morals have been lost in this stuff. And so everybody needs to hit up Rob or anybody else doing a podcast. It is not some elitist or esoteric kind of thing. Share what you're doing for the betterment of the community because there's gold if you mine it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a good place to finish up, mate, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on again. It's just there's always a lot of fun. I appreciate the frankness. I appreciate the open-ended communication. And if there's anybody out there that wants to connect, if you're in LA, just let me know. Again, right now I'm in the middle of a move and trying to get my family out here. So if my responses are a bit delayed or fractured or what have you, please forgive me. I'll get in the normal routine soon. But if you're out here, love to have you. You can reach out to me again on Twitter or Facebook. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. My Ethos email account is obviously no longer active. So right now my personal email account, just brett.bartholomew7@gmail.com. Later on it will be brett@unbreakableperformance.com. But for right now, just reach out to me on the personal site. Call me directly, anything. Always happy to hear from everybody and appreciate the support, honestly.
Awesome as usual, Brett. Cool.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Right, we'll catch up soon.
All right, take care.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for tuning in to episode 72 of the Pacey Performance Podcast. Again, hope you enjoyed part 2 with Brett. Such a great guy, and I'm sure you took so much from the little chat we had. So just to make you aware of number 3 in the Pacey Performance webinar series with Matt Jordan. So as the previous 2 with Dan Baker and Ian McKeel, it'll be great content, and as I mentioned in the intro, I saw Matt speak in Seattle, and you won't be disappointed. So if you do want to check out Matt and hear him present, get over to paceyperformance.co.uk/Matt. So I've got some great guests again coming up over the next couple of weeks and months, so keep checking back, and I will speak to you soon.